And good day, my listeners. We're at chapter 12, verse 4 of the book of Isaiah. Thank you for joining me. And in that day shall you say, Praise the Lord, call upon his name, declare his doings among the people, make mention that his name is exalted. Notes. The four things are listed here that Israel will then do and which believers should do now. They should praise the Lord continually, call upon his name constantly, declare his doings among the people constantly, and 4, make mention that his name is exalted constantly. Verse 5, Sing unto the Lord, for he has done excellent things. This is known in all the earth. Notes. While most people contest this right now, in the coming kingdom age, Christ will be he will be the theme in all the earth. Everyone's going to know exactly who he is and what he can do. Verse 6, Cry out and shout, you inhabitant of Zion, for great is the Holy One of Israel in the midst of you. Notes. Well, this kind of refers to a constant camp meeting when Christ finally reigns upon the earth. Chapter 13, and the doom of Babylon is going to be predicted. This is very important here. Verse 1, The burden of Babylon, which Isaiah the son of Amoz did see. Note. Well, according to Isaiah's prophecy, Babylon is the first city or empire to actually be judged, and so it was. She has been, is, and will be a great enemy. She is Satan's city in opposition to Jerusalem, which is the Messiah's city. I mean, you can see the people of Babylon beginning to rally against Jerusalem right now, against Israel as a whole. Verse 2, Lift up a banner upon the high mountain, exalt the voice unto them, shake the hand that they may go into the gates of the nobles. Notes. Well, this passage has to do with the capture of Babylon by the Medes, but even more so, it symbolizes the calling of the nations together to fight at Armageddon. I mean, you just have to simply pay attention to what's going on in Europe and in Asia and parts of ancient Palestine, and you can see that there is definitely a rumbling going on. The nations are rather rallying to war with each other right now. Verse 4, The noise of a multitude in the mountains, like as of a great people, a tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. The Lord of hosts musters the host of the battle. Notes. Now, obviously, once again, this refers to the Battle of Armageddon and the destruction of the Antichrist, which will take place at the second coming. Like I've said repeatedly, God is going to allow the Jewish people to be backed into such a tight corner that they have no choice but to call upon Him, and whenever they call upon Him, He will definitely answer their call. He has planned this out right from the very beginning. Verse 5, They come from a far country, from the end of the heaven, even the Lord and the weapons of His indignation to destroy the whole land. Notes. At this time, and we continue to speak of Armageddon, of course, the Lord will definitely lead the charge. Let's just get that out of the way and wash our hands with it. He's going to wipe the floor with a lot of people. Verse 6, Howl ye, for the day of the Lord is at hand. It shall come as a destruction from the Almighty. Notes. Now, the howling refers to a type of crying, and it refers to Israel's destitute condition during the Battle of Armageddon, immediately before the second coming of Christ. However, the Lord will definitely then come with the Antichrist then destroyed. He will be allowed to do some more things later on, but we'll cover that when I get to it. Verse 7, Therefore shall all hands be faint, and every man's heart shall melt. Notes. Well, even though this pertains to the near destruction of Babylon by Cyrus, it portrays in an even greater way the helplessness of the Antichrist and his armies at the second coming of Christ. Satan is not going to be totally done away with. He will have a second influx, as I like to call it, but we'll cover that whenever we get to it. Verse 8, "And they shall be afraid, pangs and sorrows shall take hold of them. They shall be in pain as a woman who travails, and shall be amazed one at another. Their faces shall be as flames." Notes. Well, this speaks of Israel's sad condition just before the second coming. You can read a little more in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 2 through 3. You can see the beginnings of this beginning to happen right now in this world. Verse 9, "Behold, the day of the Lord comes, cruel, both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it." Notes. While these passages have a limited reference to the near destruction of Babylon by the Medes and the Persians, their total fulfillment awaits the second coming, or I should say, the coming battle of Armageddon and the second coming of the Lord. Verse 10, "For the stars of heaven and the constellation thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine." Notes. Well, as is obvious, none of this happened during the first destruction of Babylon. However, it will happen in the last half of the Great Tribulation and at the second coming. Matthew chapter 24, verse 29. The glory of God's light is going to be so bright that celestial, or starlight I should say, is going to be dim in comparison, is what this is actually referring to. Verse 11, "And I will punish the world for their evil, and the wicked for their iniquity. And I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease, and will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible." Notes. Well, what could be the proud and the terrible refer to the Antichrist in particular, and to all of his followers in general. They're going to get one of Hank Williams Jr.'s attitude adjustments. You should listen to that song and you'll get the idea. Verse 12, "I will make a man more precious than fine gold, even a man than the golden wedge of Ophir." Notes. Well, you have to kind of draw this verse right here forward. "But so great will the destruction, and so many men will be killed, that they will be as scarce as the golden wedge of Ophir." Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39 document the horror of this event. Verse 13, "Therefore I will shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out of its place, in the wrath of the Lord of hosts, and in the day of his fierce anger." Notes. Now, for the last nearly 2,000 years, the world has little known the wrath or anger of God. During the last half of the Great Tribulation, and especially during the Battle of Armageddon, his wrath and his anger will most definitely be directed toward the earth. Not towards the good people. Not so much as a hair on your head is going to be harmed. But towards the sinners and those who join the Antichrist, his wrath is going to be absolutely limitless. Verse 14, "And it shall be as the chased roe, and as a sheep that no man takes up. They shall every man turn to his own people, and flee everyone into his own land." Notes. Well, this speaks of the great fear of the people at the example of the wrath and anger of the Lord, which will take place as stated in the latter half of the Great Tribulation. Verse 15, "Everyone who is found shall be thrust through, and everyone who is joined unto them shall fall by the sword." Notes. This passage is saying that all of the armies of the Antichrist who do not flee, they're going to perish. And the good news for those people who flee is a lot of them are actually going to come to their senses. Okay, verse 16. Their children also shall be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses shall be spoiled and their wives ravished. Notes. Now this refers to the prophecies of Zechariah, which will be fulfilled in totality at the Battle of Armageddon. Zechariah chapter 12 verse 14, chapter 14 verse 2 I should say. Verse 17. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold they shall not delight in it. Notes. Well, obviously this passage refers to the Medes and the Persians attacking Babylon and taking the city. Strangely enough, their object was not plunder, getting riches in gold or things of high wealth, but rather they were wanting conquest and extension of domination, which is really kind of unusual. Verse 18. Their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare children. Notes. Now, Isaiah now predicts a great slaughter concerning the coming invasion of Babylon by the Medes. And that did take place about 200 years from the time of Isaiah. It is an absolute fact of history. The Lord speaks, and He means what He says. Verse 19. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. Notes. Now verses 19 through 22, if you'll pay attention, relate to the judgment described in Revelation chapter 16 verse 6 and chapter 18 verses 1 and 2. Therefore, this passage does not refer to the invasion by the Medes. You have to keep that in mind. Verse 20. It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch the tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. Notes. After the great destruction of Babylon near the close of the Great Tribulation recorded in Revelation chapter 18, the area shall never be inhabited again. Well, this could not be said of the destruction of Babylon in past. In fact, the city continued for several centuries. Verse 21. But wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures. And owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there. And the wild beasts of the islands shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in their pleasant places. Or pleasant palaces, I should say. And her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged. Notes. Well, in the coming millennium, and even into the new earth found in Revelation chapter 21 and 22, there will be certain openings in the earth where men can actually see into the eternal hell. Well, some have suggested that this spot, Babylon, so long used as a site of rebellion against God, will be one of those openings. If so, the words satyrs and dragons could refer to demon spirits, which at that time will be visible as one looks down into these openings. But keep in mind that it could also refer to something like the Komodo dragon or some other type of animal. I would really have to check my Strongs. I really don't know exactly what that's referring to. But it could very well refer to demon spirits. Whenever people look down into hell, they're going to get their act together. A lot of them. Chapter 14. And this is really good news. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be and the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. Notes. The entirety of this chapter concerns itself with the restoration of Israel, which began on May 15th of 1948. And it will be completed shortly after the second coming. My friends, what happened on May 15th of 1948 is the biggest miracle that God has ever done, besides something like the Red Sea parting or anything like that. I mean, for a nation to be born just like that, every major prophet in the Old Testament said that this was going to happen, and there it is, right there in plain sight. May 15th of 1948. Verse 2. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids, and they shall take them captives. They shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. Notes. This is saying that the nations of the world that have caused Israel great sorrow and trouble will see the roles reversed. And we speak of the coming kingdom age. Whereas the oppressors once ruled over them, now Israel will rule over the oppressors. And this doesn't mean that Israel is going to get a chance to bully those nations around and oppress them. It means that Israel is going to have her rightful place. That is God's personal stomping ground. And I can well imagine that those nations are going to feel really sorry whenever these things begin to happen. Verse 3. And it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall give you rest from your sorrow, and from your fear, and from the hard bondage wherein you are made to serve. Notes. Well, Israel could have had this rest all along, but for their rebellion against the Lord. All through the Old Testament, right from the very time of Moses all the way up until right about now. Verse 4. Hold on just a second. Just a minute here. I'm going to have to roll up the window. Verse 4. That you shall take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how has the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. Notes. Well, this will come to pass at the second coming, with this song then no doubt being sung because Israel will then have accepted Christ. And if I remember correctly, in the book of Daniel, Babylon was symbolized by gold, so this is definitely a golden city being referred to, if my memory serves me correct. Babylon was a very rich and powerful place with very little military power. Verse 5. The Lord has broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers. Notes. Now the Antichrist is called here the wicked, and Paul addressed him as such as well in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 8. At the Battle of Armageddon, he will definitely be broken along with all of his little cohorts. Ezekiel chapters 38 through 39 record the horror of these events. Verse 6. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he who ruled the nations in anger is persecuted, and none hinders. Notes. Now this phrase, none hinders, refers to the nations of the world which will have no power against the Lord of glory when he comes back. The people in this passage basically refer to Israel as a whole and the efforts of the Antichrist to completely destroy them. And I remind you, if it weren't for God, the Antichrist would definitely be successful. Verse 7. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Yes, the fir trees even rejoice at you, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since you are laid down, no feller is come up against us. Notes. Now, even though this is poetic and kind of tranquil, the tranquility of this verse is resulting from the doom of the Antichrist. Verse 9. Hell from beneath is moved for you to meet you at your coming. It stirs up the dead for you, even all the chief ones of the earth. It has raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. Notes. Now that this place called hell is literal cannot be denied by any honest investigation of Scripture. The most powerful one to enter that place will be the Antichrist. However, his just doom will be the same as all the others. Verse 10, all they shall speak and say unto you, Are you also become weak as we? Or are you become like unto us? Notes. This one passage should be a warning to all those who think their power, pomp, and prestige will reserve some special place for them in God's eternity. It will not. You can literally own the entire world. You can own the entire universe if you somehow had the power. But if you do not have Christ, hell is going to be the result. Verse 11. Your pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of your vials. The worm is spread under you, and the worms cover you. Notes. The dead spoken of in this verse 9 refers to the Rephaim, the giants who once inhabited certain parts of the earth, who were the result of the ungodly union of fallen angels and women recorded in Genesis 6:4. Now the vials, not spelled V-I-A-L, but V-I-O-L-S, this speaks of the pomp and the ceremony that once accompanied the Antichrist. The music band, the people who beat their drums. Now the worm is spoken of in a figurative sense here of the never-dying consciousness of men in hell. Mark chapter 9, verse 44 through 46. I can imagine hell as a very disgusting and vile place. Verse 12. One of the most interesting verses in the Bible, by the way. How are you fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How are you cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations? Notes. Isaiah's prophecy now switches from the Antichrist to his own unholy sponsor, Satan himself. Well, Lucifer is the name of Satan. Actually, he is an angel, originally created by God, who served the Lord in righteousness for quite a long period of time, I imagine. When he fell, he had a revolution against God, with about 1/3 of the angels, it seems, throwing in their lot with him. Revelation chapter 12, verse 4. Well, why in the world wouldn't God just simply destroy 1/3 of those angels? Well, by golly, people. Would you like to go out and kill your own children? God has different plans. Therefore, all the pain, suffering, misery, heartache, death, and deception which have ruled the nations from the very beginning can be laid at the doorsteps of this revolution headed up by Satan. Verse 13. For you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will also sit upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Notes. What pride and what arrogance. In these two verses we see the ferment of Satan's rebellion and revolution against God. It seems that Lucifer, while true to the Lord, was given dominion of the earth which was before Adam. After his fall, he worked deceitfully to get other angelic rulers to follow him in the war against God. Verse 15. Yet you shall be brought down to hell, to the very sides of the pit. Notes. Well, this would be the lot of Satan and all those who seek to be like God, but in a wrong way. In effect, they try to make themselves God, which is absolutely ridiculous and stupid. Consequently, I am insulting the devil's intelligence there. Verse 16. They who see you shall narrowly look upon you and consider you, saying, Is this the man who made the earth to tremble, who did shake the kingdoms? Notes. Now the prophecy reverts back to the Antichrist. We know this because it addresses him by saying, Is this the man? Verse 17. Who made the world as a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof, who opened not the house of his prisoners. Notes. The debut of the Antichrist, which will take place shortly after the very rapture of the church, will not bring the promised peace and prosperity, but instead will make the world a prison. That's why I scratch my head in awe and wonder at all these people that are saying, we want peace in the earth, we want peace, peace, peace. And yet they're aiming nuclear weapons at each other. How stupid is that? Verse 18. All the kingdoms, let me read that again. All the kings of the nations, even all of them, lie in glory, everyone in his own house. But you are cast out of your grave like an abominable branch, and as the raiment of those who are slain, thrust through with the sword, who go down to the stones of the pit as a carcass trodden under feet. Notes. Despite the fact that the Antichrist will come closer than any man to conquering the entirety of the world, still, his final end will be ignominious, degrading, and very despicable. He's going to be shown up for the rotten pile of garbage he actually is. He will be killed by the Lord at the Battle of Armageddon. Verse 20. You shall not be joined with them in burial, because you have destroyed your land and slain your people. The seed of evildoers shall never be renowned. Notes. In this verse we have some proof that the Antichrist will be an apostate Jew because it uses the words your land and your people. Some even think because of the prophecies of Jacob that the Antichrist will come from the tribe of Dan. Genesis chapter 49 verse 17. The book of Daniel deals even more in depth with the Antichrist and what his personality is going to be like. And, you got these people out there that teach that he's going to be a Catholic or he's going to be a Christian. No, the evidence points to him being a Jew. The Greek word antichrist actually means instead of Christ. And right off the get-go, if you're going to go around and pretend to be Jesus and to deceive the entire world, you might actually have to be of Jewish descent to actually get that kind of going. So it just kind of makes sense to me. And there's much more evidence in the book of Daniel. I'll be happy to cover that. Verse 21. Prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. Notes. Verses 21 through 23 are going to pertain to the destruction and the desolation of the resurrected Babylon. Revelation chapter 18 for further documentation. Verse 22. For I will rise up against them, saith the Lord of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name, the remnant, the son and nephew, saith the Lord. Notes. Babylon is man's city, and hence it is of Satan. It's Satan's city. It was built by Nimrod as a sign of rebellion against God. Genesis chapter 10 verses 8 through 10. Nimrod became mighty upon the earth. It and its final rebellion will be no more. God is saying he's going to wipe the floor with it and get rid of it. Verse 23. I will also make it a possession for the bittern and pools of water, and I will sweep it with the besom of destruction, saith the Lord of hosts. Notes. The destruction by the Lord of this city will be like somebody taking a mop and taking a broom and sweeping it clean. That's exactly what he's saying. He's going to wipe the floor with it. With that being said, I'll have to pick up in chapter 14, verse 24 of the book of Isaiah, Thank you, and God bless. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.